I've always been really into art. Since I was a kid, I was always drawing. That was always my main thing. When I got into high school, I didn't want art teachers telling me what to do. So I started with technical theater. I was the head painter there. And then my band director started getting me into art. I did all the props for them, all the shirts, designs. And I got really into graphic design. Thought that's what I was going to do. Then I went to studio art. Thought that's what I was going to do. And now here I am. I'm a teacher. But I got into art through just the curiosity to draw itself. So my name is Livi Crowell, or whenever I'm in a classroom, Mix Crowell, and I make a lot of different art. I mostly teach though. I'm mostly an art teacher. Oh, my favorite pieces to be commissioned for, portraits. Hands down. Doing people is what I find so much happiness in, especially if it's like a partner or a family member that they really want to capture their like spirit and essence and soul in that piece. Like, I love doing that. I love putting a piece of myself into a piece that I know is going to go to a really special home and be appreciated. Getting to show diverse body types and skin tones and different types of people and walks of life and who you look like. It's fun. I don't like drawing boring people. I don't like drawing boring things. I hate landscapes and I hate still lifes. I will teach them though, because they are essential, but I hate doing them myself. I think my art has evolved a lot, even the past year, since last doing an interview and getting to show my art there. I only started with like charcoal, color pencils, crayons at first, and that was all in my high school because that's what was accessible to me. And then as I got into college and a little bit older, I could afford some good acrylics. And then I realized, oh, there's more paint than that. I can do more. I started painting with oils, and I fell in love with oils. And it was like one of the best experiences ever. I could finally do like genuine realism with my paintings. It had feeling, 3D touch to it. And then I went back to digital art, which I did back in middle school and high school. I thought I wasn't good at it. Practiced a lot. I got really good at it. And now I'm primarily a digital artist, and I don't do realism anymore. Even within 1 year, I stopped doing realism. I can do it. It's not fun. And I want to capture fun in my art, especially because I want to teach elementary and I want to have fun. And if I'm not having fun with my own art and it's all serious, then like, what am I gonna do with my students, you know? I feel like I've always really gravitated towards teaching, but I always very much rejected the idea of becoming a teacher because I felt like I wasn't a good fit for that. And I know I have tattoos, piercings, and I am who I am, but I feel like that might be good for kids. And I feel like I might fit really well in this type of program. I absolutely model my teaching after a specific teacher in mind. His name is Mr. Todd Smith. He was my band director back in high school. He wrote my yearbook, and he told me that there's, paraphrasing, that kindness is really rare, and if you have that, you gotta latch onto that and really give it to people. You know, it's not a weakness, that's your strength, is to be kind. He always taught just his authentic self. He was never someone who he wasn't in the classroom and then behind his desk, you know? He taught with so much compassion and so much emotion, and like he even cried in front of us and like wasn't afraid to get emotional about what he was passionate about, which is teaching and music. And that's who I want to be as a teacher. I don't want my students to feel like I'm putting on an act for them. I want to be me with them and give them what they deserve, you know? I learned a lot since I started to teach about teaching in general. I thought I knew everything through classes. You know nothing whenever you step into an actual classroom, I feel. I started actually with my field experience in teaching. I had one class, one of the kids called me a faggot. You know, that was fun experience. And then COVID hit and I had to go home. So there was a lot of waiting in between that. Whenever I went and I did observations a while ago, but it was like very formative to how I view teaching and how I wanted to start my student teaching career. I loved my observation experiences. I think my teachers that I worked with were the best ones that I could ask for. And even one of them convinced me to start my journey with grad school. I never even thought that would be an opportunity for me. Didn't think I would be capable of that, and now I'm applying. I think my main decision for doing that is I am not ready. And if you're a teacher who's not ready, and then you go get a job and step into a classroom, your students are going to know that you're not ready. Your students aren't going to get the best education from you as possible. And I had a lot of professors tell me, oh, well, no one's ready their first year. And I get that, and that's true. But I'm not ready in my own way of, I still have a lot of life learning to do, I think. I think who I am 1,000,000% affects who I am as a teacher and what I want to give my students. Every time I make a lesson plan, my first thing I look at is accessibility for all my students and extension activities and, action plans for those who maybe can't do all the printmaking and the labor that comes with a lot of art processes. I look at that first, and I found out a lot of other teachers actually don't do that, or, teachers in training. It's actually the least of their worries half of the time. But I try to make the most diverse curriculum that I can because of who I am and the curriculum that I wasn't allowed to get growing up, just because I had a disorder. I'm also disabled to an extent. I have chronic pain, and so a lot of the time it's really hard to create art even myself. So I look for that with my students, and that's a really huge thing. Sometimes if you're doing ceramics, a student can't knead out all that clay for 5 minutes at a time, or they can't sit at the wheel and do all those processes that able-bodied kids can do. And it's hard for them. And then a lot of times, special education students, they just get shoved in the art classroom because they don't know what to do with them, instead of actually learning how to teach those students, because they're human beings and they should be given correct curriculum. I think a lot of my experiences in life has changed how I want to teach, and it's mostly from teachers who failed me. I may have been failed, but I'm not going to fail my students now because I learned from them. Being a queer teacher, all my lessons that have featured artists are going to have queer artists, or they're going to have, black artists. They're going to have, I'm going to have a diverse curriculum for them, because I didn't get that. I never once saw a queer artist being featured in my art classroom until I was a teacher myself, and I got to do that. I think the hardest part of teaching for me is my anxiety. I have very bad anxiety, and my first time going to teach with the Young Artists Workshop, I actually had an anxiety attack that morning. I think it was really hard to learn self-confidence when it comes to teaching, and worrying, are the students going to like me? Are they going to be receptive to my curriculum that I plan to teach? Are they going to do the project? Are they going to care? Are they going to take anything from it? Because that's what's important to me, is if you're taking something from it, I've done my job as a teacher. I was just really scared that I was going to mess up. What if I scar this kid's life? As a teacher, you can do that. And then I started teaching. And immediately my kids were so receptive and nice and sweet, and they're just kids who want an education. And I realized I had nothing to worry about. But my anxiety definitely gets in the way. I get very worried because I want to teach tough things, and I want to, give them the curriculum that they deserve. And I feel like there's a lot of roadblocks in the way, surprisingly, when you try to do that and be your authentic self also as a teacher. So being a non-binary teacher and having to put titles before your last name, it's extremely difficult. I've already had some roadblocks with it just with student teaching so far. In the past, I've expressed wanting to get a doctorate just so students would call me Dr. Crowell, and it wasn't even like a controversial thing. Like, you just had to do it. Honestly, I don't know if I have it in me to get a doctorate at this point. I've really started putting my foot down with mixed Crowell, and my students respect it. A lot of other educators don't. You don't get pushback from students. They don't care. They like you if you are who you are. It's adults that don't care for you and say it's too confusing for the students. And, I don't care what they have to think. They're not the student in my classroom. I'm not giving them an education. I think being queer has definitely helped me in a classroom more than ever hurt me. And I thought it would be the opposite. But a really big wake-up call that, this is something that is good to be my authentic self with my students is when I started Young Artists Workshop, and I just openly said to my students, hey, here's my pronouns. If you want to share yours with your introductions, you can do that. and every single one of my students was trans. After opening up with them and them being open with me, all their art was so receptive of the lesson and what it meant, and all of their art was so authentic to them. They didn't hide one thing about themselves, which is all I ask from them. So growing up queer, you know, I'm white, I have a lot of privilege from that, but I grew up identifying as a girl. I grew up openly queer when I hit middle school. That was so hard. I felt miserable every day of my life growing up. And teachers were homophobic straight up to me. I once held a girl's hand in my classroom, and my teacher stopped in front of the whole class, stopped everything, just to scream at me and say, "Girls don't do that. People don't do that. That's disgusting." I once had a girlfriend in high school. I got screamed at for kissing her cheek, and the teachers threatened to call my parents, and I wasn't like fully out, you know, and my girlfriend really wasn't out at all. So that was terrifying. That's almost like, you know, a real threat to give to a student. And then as I went to college and I started being more open with my identity, I've gotten a lot of backlash from professors, especially once I got into education. That was where it was like not allowed suddenly. When I was in studio, please express yourself. That's all we want from you. Got into education, don't be you. Half of the time, sometimes. And a lot of that was just from specific professors. Have I had to call out any professor specifically? I'm already heated about that question and about that topic. Yes, I have. You know, I've had teachers gossip about me behind my back to full classrooms before. I've had professors gossip about me to other professors. I've had professors talk about my tattoos, my piercings, my hair dye, just how I look and dress in general and who I am as a queer person, which is not professional and not okay. And it's kind of frankly disgusting that you would be an educator and do that to somebody trying to become an educator, let alone your student as well. And I've had to come up to them straight up and say, "Hey, you don't do that. No, that's not okay." You'd never critique somebody based on what they look like. That's not an indicator of who they are as a teacher or who they are as a person. And kind of done with it. Kind of tired of it. But I guess to make actual change, you're going to have to ruffle feathers sometimes. And sadly, I'm just the one that's being... I'm the one having to ruffle the feathers in life, so. But I've had a lot of backlash from people saying, "Your students aren't going to understand your pronouns, don't do it." Or saying, "Okay, we'll do it, but I'm going to dead name you this whole time." And it's really disheartening. It's really hard to go through. But I feel like the more I stand up for it and the more I just fight against it and I don't back down, I know it's going to help my students one day, and it's going to help me too. You know, when I walk in a classroom, I think people are a little surprised. And when I meet my professors, I've honestly been greeted with a, "Oh, you're one of the education students too?" Yeah, I can enjoy teaching and look cool at the same time. Having ink in my skin doesn't prohibit me from being a cool teacher. Just no matter what, the way I look and present is just never professional enough for people, and I've kind of gotten sick of trying to fit into a box that I'm clearly never going to fit into. That I just started making my own curriculum, or my own criteria for what a professional is, and stuck to that. And once people see me start teaching, they have nothing to say. But yeah, I think a lot of people are surprised when I am as passionate as I am about education. You know, one day I want to be on, like, an administrator and do all those high up things that, you know, I never saw anyone look like me growing up, and I think it's cool. Becoming a teacher is the most exciting thing I've ever done with my life, if I'm being completely honest. I am finishing up my schooling next semester. I'm going to be placed with student teaching, finally, classroom where I'm in charge of. It is terrifying, beyond scary, but it is the most exciting thing that I can imagine doing. You know, I'm changing lives, and I'm working with kids, which is such a big passion. I've spent like 5 years working up to this. So it's scary, but it's so exciting and so fulfilling and so fun, and I'm excited. I'm so excited. I'm gonna get a cool apron, some cool skirts. I'm gonna be the Miss Frizzle. So I'm very excited.